He injected new blood, joined certain veins, arteries, and nerves at the headless neck, and enclosed the ghastly aperture with engrafted skin from an unidentified specimen which had borne an officer's uniform. I knew what he wanted, to see if this highly organized body could exhibit, without its head, any of the signs of mental life which had distinguished Sir Eric Morland, Clapham Lee. Once a student of reanimation, this silent trunk was now gruesomely called upon to exemplify it. I can still see Herbert West under the sinister electric light as he injected his reanimating solution into the arm of the headless body. The scene I cannot describe. I should faint if I tried it. For there is madness in a room full of classified charnel things, with blood and lesser human debris almost ankle-deep on the slimy floor, and with hideous reptilian abnormalities sprouting, bubbling, and baking over a winking bluish-green specter of dim flame in a far corner of black shadows. And that is an excerpt from the story I will be reviewing today. It is Herbert West Reanimator by H.P. Lovecraft. Alright, Herbert West Reanimator, the short story by H.P. Lovecraft. I just want to give you guys a little bit of a background about the story. So it was written between October 1921 and June 1922, and it was serialized between February and July 1922 in a publication called Homebrew. And the story was also the inspiration for the 1985 horror film Reanimator. But it's also notable as one of the first depictions of zombies as scientifically reanimated corpses with animalistic and uncontrollable temperament. What inspired Lovecraft was he was, I guess, writing a parody of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. And he drops in numerous Frankenstein references and even hints at poetry of Samuel Taylor Coleridge, as Shelley did in her novel. It's said that Lovecraft claimed to be unhappy with the work. I guess he was writing it just for the money, because he was getting $5 for each installment. Part of the reason he disliked it is he hated having to write each installment with a cliffhanger ending. It just wasn't his normal style of work. I had also read one source that stated the story was kind of removed from him. A lot of his other stories he was writing from the depths of his heart, or the depths of his tormented soul, is one way he put it, and Reanimator was far removed from that. It was more run-of-the-mill for him. So before I carry out further discussion, I just want to summarize some of the plot elements to lend some context to the discussion. The narrator of the story is a doctor who serves alongside Herbert West in his various experiments, and they've known each other since college, since their days attending Miskatonic University in Arkham. And Herbert West's main objective is he's trying to overcome death. He's trying to achieve immortality through the use of scientific methods, and he's created this special serum that he can inject into a corpse and thus reanimate its brain and its muscles and everything in the body. And he starts out, of course, experimenting on guinea pigs and animals, and he's achieving success with this, and naturally he wants to progress to human bodies, and this is where a lot of the obstacles crop up. For one, the human body has a different kind of brain. It's proportioned differently. And he ends up having to adjust how he uses the serum on a human body, the amount that he injects into the human body. But he also runs into the problem of the university disallows him to use the dissecting rooms. And so he has to go out and dig graves to attain bodies, and he has to utilize a abandoned farmhouse as his laboratory to carry out his experiments. So the farmhouse experiments don't really take off, and they end up burning the farmhouse to the ground accidentally after tipping over a lantern. And West's experiments are stunted for a period until a typhoid epidemic breaks out, and West and the narrator are called to assist with the dead and the dying, and West begins to inject his serum into the various typhoid victims. And he doesn't get much results. At one point, the eyes of one of the corpses opens up. It's not until the dean of the college, Halsey's his name, he contracts the typhoid virus and dies. And West takes his corpse to his boarding house and injects the serum into him. And the results are monstrous. Halsey's corpse goes on a rampage, a cannibalistic rampage, and knocks both West and the narrator unconscious. And it's not until Halsey's corpse is captured eventually and locked up into an asylum that the rampage stops. And it's described that his reanimated corpse just kind of madly pounds its head against the padded walls of the asylum for the next 16 years. But Herbert West is still intent on successfully reanimating a corpse. And he ends up coming across the corpse of a black boxing champion who dies of a head injury in an illegal street fight. But he gets the same monstrous result. He produces this cannibalistic beast who ends up attacking a mother and its small child. And just before he blows it away with his revolver, he sees the small arm of the child dangling from its mouth. It's a very disturbing scene in the story. So West discovers that the reason he's failed in all his reanimation attempts is because the brain has decomposed too much. There's no sense of reason or intelligence in the brain after the brain tissue is decomposed. So he creates this embalming fluid that he's able to inject into the corpse right after death that preserves it. And he has attained the body of a traveling salesman who dies from a heart attack. He injects the serum into his corpse, preserving it, and then injects the reanimation serum. And he gets his first real results. He gets an actual intelligent response from the man. So 5 years pass, and Herbert West makes his way into the Great War. Now he has a constant supply of corpses. And this officer dies in a plane crash, and Herbert West acquires his corpse and administers the reanimation serum. And he gets some really true results. The body of the officer, Chaplin's his name, begins to violently thrash about, but he yells out these words, "Jump, Ronald, for God's sake, jump!" And the corpse is basically reenacting its final moments before the plane crash. So he gets, true, intelligent, reasonable results from the corpse. But then a bombshell destroys the building, and Herbert West and the narrator survive, but they believe the corpse has been vaporized. Well, more time passes, and he discovers that's not the truth. This corpse has now reconfigured its face with wax, and it's formed a riot at the insane asylum where one of his first subjects is being contained. It's formed a riot with other disturbed figures whom I believed were other possible zombies that were part of West's creations, but I don't know for sure on that part. But they form a riot at the insane asylum and break this subject free, and then they come to West and break into his home and eventually disembowel West. And the narrator struggles with everybody believing he's insane whenever he tries to recount this story and all the things that he knows. So that's a basic summary of some of the plot elements. So what did I think of this story? It was better than I expected. I've read a few other Lovecraft stories like The Rats in the Walls and Call of Cthulhu. Reanimator seems a bit more generic when compared to his other work, but that also gave it some of its charm. I enjoyed reading about the scientific process West uses and how that process evolves with the different obstacles he faces. Herbert West himself might have been the most disturbing effect of the story. He's so cold and calculated and arrogant, driven with a laser focus to achieve his goal, regardless of what it destroys or who he takes advantage of on the way there. That was disturbing to me. Passion can become this all-consuming thing. The scene I read in the intro shows that all-consuming madness when Herbert West is so focused on his latest experiment that there's puddles of blood and random body parts strewn everywhere. The story also inspires a great sense of adventure. You start imagining all kinds of possibilities. Where can the scientific method take us? Sometimes a magnificent, helpful road, and sometimes a very bad road. In the case for Herbert West, his creations turn against him, suggesting some powers of the universe shouldn't be tampered with. Or there's a point we've gone too far, right? It's the old Pandora's box predicament. Some discoveries or presents can seem valuable, but in reality they are a curse. I sometimes struggle with the writing style. Lots of explanation and summary, and very wordy at times. This wasn't all bad. It made sense with the narrator, who is a doctor taking account of his experience, and much of the luxuriant language would be true to the narrator's knowledge and intelligence. However, I did find myself skimming through much of the moments when the narrator would rehash the backstory at the beginning of almost every scene. A bit tedious. Some have claimed Lovecraft's writing is static. He can't create a scene. There's no dramatization with action and description painting a vivid cinematic rendering in your mind's eye. Much of the horrifying moments are too horrifying to describe. I'll admit sometimes it did seem like a cop-out, like he didn't want to go through the pain of describing it, although sometimes it felt sensible from the narrator's point of view, who does attempt to describe things, but in a stiffer, more clinical fashion, I guess befitting to the particular character. Sometimes this is a downside of Lovecraft's writing. I did find myself slogging through at times and not always able to truly visualize a scene. Everything's so densely packed in exegesis instead. But overall, I did enjoy the story, and it makes me want to explore other Lovecraft stories that I haven't read yet. And I thought it had a charm to it. I thought it was a fun parody of Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. So, yeah, overall I enjoyed it. So, that concludes my review of Herbert West Reanimator by H.P. Lovecraft. Please comment below. Let me know what you guys think of the story. Let me know what you guys think of H.P. Lovecraft overall, if you enjoy most of his fiction or not. Please like this video. Share it with other horror fans. Help me keep the monster alive that is DeathGroundReviews, the monster that devours horror, suspense, and all those things of the fantastic. And I'll see you later.